On this episode, we talk with Anni Crouter, an amazing artist who specializes in watercolor paintings. Anni shares her story of how she began painting and tells us more about her saturated and photorealistic style. Anni's work can be found in museums all across the world. Visit annicrouter.com to view more of her artwork.
Do you want to start by telling us how you got into horses or what your first horse was?
How I got into horses. You know, both sides of my family are they're horse families. My dad's side, more hunter, jumper, dressage, and then my mom's side, more Western reining. So I have both sides equally on. Yeah, and then in my immediate family, I was the only one that really wanted to have horses. So I had a horse for a long time, 40 years.
Wow,
oh
one horse.
Wow.
Yes, 40 years. And so he died. My husband's a veterinarian, put him down. And then recently in the last probably 4 years, rehorsed. So I have a new horse. And so anyway, yeah. So that's my horse experience.
What was your horse that you had for 40 years? What type of horse?
It was a little POA Appy Cross, just a little mutt pony, 14 hands. I was 10 when I got him, just a little barrel racing pony. I got him from some little kid in my 5th grade class and, talked my parents into it. And they were pretty sure that within a year, I had, because they told me you don't take care of him, he's got to go. And I'm sure that's what they were kind of hoping for. But he was 10 when I got him. So 30 years later, he was still with us and in our backyard. So
that's crazy. So your parents didn't have horses. It was their
my
families.
Parents did, and my grandparents, both sides of the family. Yeah, pretty heavy into horses, but not my folks. No, my dad is a veterinarian, but not an equine veterinarian, small animal vet like my husband. So neither my husband nor my dad are that into horses. So, yeah.
So what kind of a horse do you have now?
So now I have a Gypsy Vanner.
Oh, that's a big change.
Big change. Yeah, she's big. Well, she's just heavy, so she's, but she's still only 14 hands. So a lot of hair.
Okay.
As you know, a lot of hair. Yep.
Yeah.
So did you primarily barrel race or what else?
No. So I didn't. So unlike either side of my family, I was strictly backyard pony running around the house with a trail around the house. We were on a farm, so the lanes, the woods. I just rode bareback crazy everywhere. I didn't do any showing. We didn't take that horse anywhere. He lived on the farm, and that was it. No, I've never been competitive. I never wanted to be. But, horses are, once they're in you, they're in you. So my husband was really hoping that that was not going to repeat. He fought it for a long time, about 15 years. And then he finally caved. Bought me a couple Corvettes, thought that was going to make it better. There's plenty of horses under there. And I'm like, well, in the end, it didn't work. And so we found her, and now that was going to be my funny story that we're going to, later talk. That was the funniest thing I could think of was that my husband so fought it, like a lot of husbands do, I'm sure. And now she's really his horse. She follows him everywhere. He gets up in the morning and opens the door to our balcony and yells out to her. She's in our backyard, and that's his girl. He loves her. She follows him everywhere. So she's in the garage with him when he's working. And and it's the best of everything for her. Brand new horse trailer. She never goes anywhere. Researches all the equine vets that come and take care of her because he only wants the best. Because he doesn't do horses. He can do some.
Yeah.
He worms her and gives her vaccines and stuff. But yeah, anything serious, then he's got to make sure she's going to, the right person's coming. And it's over the top. I've never seen him like this before.
So when did the art portion come in for you?
When I was a kid. So I've always painted and drawn and started out with horses, actually. That was my big, because that was everything. That's all I wanted, was I wanted my own pony, and, I drew. And so, that's basically, I really started drawing and painting them when I was little. And then, just grew up and, I paint a lot of other things now, but they're a constant. I go through phases where, for a long time I painted a lot of polar bears, and then you'll go through phases where you paint a lot of something and then you just don't want to paint it anymore. You just over it. But the horses always stay constant through all those years. So there's always a horse in the studio being worked on. So yeah.
So did you go to school for business or for did you go to school
business.
For like an artist or?
So I went to school. I went to college for business, and then took art as a minor. And then after I got out of school, after I graduated, then I from college, then I hooked up with a really great mentor at a museum here in Michigan. We have a art school there, and I have been with him for probably about 28 years. He's 85, and now we teach the class together. Our art class together. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, he's pretty amazing. He's right up there with my dad. He's really been influential in my art. Yep.
What class do you teach?
A watercolor. It's a watercolor / acrylic class, whatever. We'll teach them whatever they want to learn. This is really, we have people that have been in the class for 30 some years, same people. And then we have people who've never painted before. So, we do both, and we'll teach people whatever they want to learn.
Is it really that hard to learn? I mean, and do you start people off with acrylic or watercolor, or just what they want to choose?
What they want to choose. And everybody's different. Either you have the potential to develop that, or you don't. I mean, everyone will go so far. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have people that have been in the class, like I said, for 30 years who have come a really long way. Maybe not that far. Yeah. They don't, so either you have that gift, truly have it, or you don't have it. But you can develop it if you work at it to be, a pretty mediocre, stable artist if you want to do it. Yeah. So, yeah.
Very cool. Do you do a lot of your students paint horses, or is it?
Some do, just a few. Not, some do. Some have come to the class to learn just that because they know that I paint a fair amount of horses, so. But no, I mean, they paint everything, whatever. I can paint whatever, I paint anything. I can paint anything. So just, whatever they want to learn, we'll teach them.
And do you primarily work with, like, yourself? Do you primarily like to use acrylics, or does it matter?
I started out in oils.
Okay.
When I was much younger. And then high school. And then they started making me sick. Really bad headaches, the turpentine and the linseed oil. Mm-hmm. There's a water-based oil. I don't love it. So then I kind of got into acrylics. And then when I met my mentor, he was a watercolor guy. And so I started doing watercolor. And that's a really hard medium to master. But I do a lot of it and done really well with it. So, yeah, so we do both. The watercolor pieces are smaller. They're restricted by size, kind of, but the piece behind me is quite large. And so that's acrylic. I mean, it's not done either, but it's one I was working on. So the big pieces, and I don't know, did you get the piece that I sent for my headshot?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The 2 horses. Those are paintings, not real horses.
I can't believe that.
It's crazy. It's so it's so cool that people can take this 2D element and make it look like so lifelike.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody likes that in art. Some people like abstraction and, more impressionistic, but I love representational art. I love it myself. That's what I want to look at. And that's how I want to paint. So, that's what I do. So, yeah. I mean, I want them to speak to people, so.
And your work is in a lot of galleries. From
Lots
your
of
website.
galleries all over the world.
And is it, like your gallery work, is it horses or is it just everything that you've done?
Right. So museums all over the world, and then galleries I am in 2 in Michigan. So, and they are both, I'm in a gallery on Mackinac Island. And do you know much about Mackinac Island?
Yes. We were there this summer.
Yeah. So, it's all horses, right? I mean, so that island, they asked me to do a lot of that gallery. They like a lot of horses. So I paint them almost all horses and some flowers, but mostly horses. And then the other gallery is in the Lower Peninsula and up north by Traverse City. And they'll take anything. But I sell a lot of horses there, too. And they sell the bigger pieces. The gallery on Mackinac Island is a lot of small, because it's hard to get off the island with big pieces. So, the bigger pieces go to the gallery in Elk Rapids. So, yeah.
Well, when I looked at your website before, like when Ida was just sending information, I was like, oh, we're gonna, talk to somebody who's a photographer. Like I wasn't reading through. I was just looking at your photos. I was looking at your photos and I thought they were photos. So then I started clicking on them. And I was like, oh, this is acrylic. And then I went to one that was watercolor. And I'm like, no, there's no way that's watercolor. My aunt paints watercolor and she can do like quite a bit with it. But I had no clue you could do what you're doing with watercolor.
Yeah, I paint a lot more opaque. I'm not a traditional watercolor painter. I paint a lot more opaque. Most watercolor painters are real kind of loose and it's very transparent and it just has the feel of water, but I don't paint that way. I paint a lot more. I wanted mine to be boom in your face and, really bold colors, really saturated color. So I use less water. And I paint on an easel, which is very rare for watercolor people. They usually always paint flat because they're using so much water. Yeah. They can't paint on an easel. So I paint on an easel and, my watercolors are, that's kind of my that's my niche, my watercolors are a lot different than, most watercolors. So they're real saturated and heavy and look a little bit more like an acrylic than they do.
They do.
Yep.
Very, very unique compared to what you're saying, like everybody else that does more of like a watery watercolor.
Right. Transparent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which my aunt was teaching me how to do some things because I'm like, I would like to learn how to do a few things, and my grandma she knew how to sew and do embroidery and French knots and all sorts of things. And I never learned from my grandma and I wish that I would have. And so when my aunt, she retired and she just started painting probably a year and a half ago, I was like, she's here, like, and I can't paint. My sister actually was an art teacher. My sister is an artist herself, in her own right. And so I was like, well, I didn't really get that gene, but I'd still like to try. So when you were saying some people can still do something, so even if you think you can't, there are some things you can do, so I can't.
Absolutely. I really, truly believe that. I really do. I mean, I've got proof of it in our class. With people that, we've always had this class on Tuesdays, and a lot of those people will only paint just that day, a couple hours. Yeah. And they've done that for years and years and years. And we've watched them grow, and they do some really nice work, so would they go further than that? Probably not. Even if they painted 7 days a week, probably not go, there's a lot to taking it to the level that I've taken it to. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of support from your spouse involved. There's a lot more behind the whole scene of just painting involved in exhibiting and, travel and, all of that. There's a lot
Marketing
involved.
yourself.
Yeah, marketing is huge. And luckily, artists typically aren't very good marketers. And I'm not a great marketer, but I like marketing. I studied it in college. That was my favorite part of business. So I don't reject it, So a lot of artists don't have anything to do with that. They're in their studios. They don't want to talk to people. And they're, very introverted. And then basically what happens is you need to hire somebody to do all that for you. But you need to be at a level where you're going to be able to afford to hire them because your work is selling. This is kind of complicated, It's a lot like music in a way, just kind of crawling up, and the ladder and just trying to get exposure and there's all kinds of avenues. And luckily I had that's what my mentor really taught me was, how to compete, how to enter the exhibitions. And, that's all part of it for me. And so it's not for most people. They're happy painting. They give it to somebody in their family, or maybe they have a little art show in the community, or, they're happy with that. And that's great. But I was not. I wanted to be, I read all these artists' books and, followed their work, and I wanted to be, one of them.
Yeah.
So, that required more work.
Do you love horses and live the equestrian lifestyle? Be sure to check out our brand new blog at www.yourhorsefarm.com. We publish 3 posts per week and feature a free printable equine checklist every month. Yourhorsefarm.com is a great equine online resource, so be sure to share with all the horse lovers in your life. And remember, laugh much and ride often. This podcast is brought to you by Ram Horse Fencing and Stalls, the one-stop shop for your horse farm. Ram is family-owned and operated and has been in business for over 30 years. We welcome you to call in and speak with an expert about your next project today at 866-653-8984. Again, that's 866-653-8984.
So.
What do you feel your greatest achievement has been in your career?
What do I feel my greatest achievement's been? So I'm a member of the American Watercolor Society, which is very difficult to become a member. I never thought I would ever be able to be a member. The best of the best in the world are members, and they chew you up and spit you out when you enter. They're ruthless. But now I'm a member. And so that was a big turning point for me, as well as some other societies that I'm a member of. The Society of Animal Artists is this very small international group of the best wildlife artists, animal, not just wildlife, but animal artists in the world. And so, and I'm a member of other watercolors, really prestigious watercolor societies. Those were big achievements for me because that is hard, really hard. There's a lot of defeat. There's a lot of entering and not getting in, in that journey of trying to get into those societies, So that was a big deal because that's the American Watercolor Society. I mean, that's Andrew Wyeth and all those famous, all those masters, So that was a really, really big deal when I finally became a signature member of that. So, which I never thought I could do. So anyway, that's probably one of my biggest achievements.
Do you see younger people coming into this as well, or do you find that we're not seeing as many younger people come into this?
Into the societies or into art?
Art and societies and things like that. Do you notice a trend of anything?
I think no, they're coming in now into the AWS. I think that it's so hard to get in that a lot of people, and that's just typical for that society, that people kind of don't get in until a little bit later on, because you have to be so good to get in, you have to really have honed your craft. And sometimes that takes, takes years, so, but some of the other societies, there's definitely younger people coming in, which is great, so art's definitely alive and well. Representational art is alive and well. There's plenty of young people coming in, which is great. Yep. definitely great. Yep. Even in our class, we have all age groups in our class.
That's really
So,
cool.
Now, you said you
that's
have a
good.
mentor. Do you have a mentee?
My students, I've known a lot of them for a long time, and so a lot of them have, you mean people that ask me to help them, right? Yeah. I'll help anybody who wants to learn, and I have some people that definitely spend time in my studio with me, and I'm happy to share whatever I can, In fact, the class that I teach with my instructor, they're all paid there at that school, and I haven't taken any money. I don't need the money. And I'm still traveling a lot with my art, and I don't want to, sometimes I'm gone for a couple of weeks. I can't be in class, so I don't feel like I should be compensated. So, but I'm there and, helping however. And all through the pandemic, when we couldn't see each other, I helped people every day, through Zoom or with my phone, texting. It was pretty easy to help the students, with whatever they needed. And it's exciting. I had somebody call me yesterday, and she just got into her first show, and she just needed to navigate, how to get the painting ready to go. And, there's all kinds of stuff that my husband does, to get paintings ready to ship. And, but it was so exciting for her, and I was so happy for her. So, yeah, but she would never have tried had I not pushed her. And telling them, right off the bat, you guys aren't going to get in, just so you know.
Yeah.
Get ready. You're going to get turned down a lot.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You just have to keep going. It's just like anything, right? It's just like being an expert equestrian. You're not going to win everything, every class. And, it's just, it is what it is. You just have to build up. But you need someone to help you, I think, sometimes. I mean, I did.
Yeah. I was going to say,
it takes a village, It does, it's not just like you doing it on your own to be successful.
Right. It does take a village. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a framer that works up here in my studio with me. She's kind of my framer / assistant. She's also an artist. And so she's my critic too. She helps me a lot, helps me put things together. My husband, is huge. He does all the computer stuff, all the entering of the exhibitions, and makes sure everything gets shipped out. And it's a lot of work. Like I said earlier, when you get to this level, people don't realize how much work it really is. My brothers, both are defense contractors. They get up, they start work at 8 or, and work till 5. And they always, giving me guff, like, old job, blah, blah, blah. But really, it really is a lot of work, Plus, I'm for a long time when I was collecting a ton of reference, I have so much now that, I don't need to go out and collect it as often as I used to. But, we have very expensive camera equipment because I take all my own pictures, all my own reference, so, I've traveled all over Africa and zoos everywhere all over the world. And, we'd be on some fancy European vacation, and where was Ann and Nate? At some zoo in Austria that no one else was,
Wow.
Because I needed to get some reference. I was there. I wasn't going to pass that up, so because maybe there'd be some other weird animal at that zoo in another country that may not be here or whatever, so it's just constantly, going, so, because you have to have reference, because at this level, you can't thumb through National Geographic or steal a picture off of the internet or, without permission, Right. So I occasionally will use some horse photos from a lady who shoots them. I'm part of a group, and she takes reference photos, for artists to paint from. But the same, you have, 200 people painting the same image. So those are fine for workshops, for galleries. But I can't compete with that stuff because somebody could enter the same image,
Right.
So, I take all my own, I go to a lot of horse shows, and now I have this horse that's so beautiful. those gypsy banners are like art themselves with all their hair. And, you know, when you can make them move, because they're kind of dogs, you know, they kind of don't move too quick. But when you get them going, their hair flows. And I've sold a lot of paintings of her.
Wow.
Yeah. So, anyway, so that's kind of the underpinnings of it all, I guess.
Did it take you a long time to get established too? I mean, like for business wise and making an income, like how long do you think it took? Years and years, because all of those things that you're striving for, all those societies that you're trying to be accepted into, all of those major exhibitions that you're trying to get into, the museum acquisitions, all of those things are what collectors want to see when they spend $10,000 or $15,000 on a painting. You know, they want to know your history. Those people want to know you've been somewhere. They want to see you in magazines. They want to see you published. You know, those bigger collectors want that behind their artists usually. You know, not always, but generally speaking, I found that, you know, they want to know that, you know, their work is hopefully going to appreciate, you know, and so they want to know that you mean business and that, you know, that's what you're doing, you know, for a living, you know, so, and, you know, money wise, I do very well, I think, for an artist. But I would never have gotten this far without my husband and his support and not having to, you know, I owned a dog grooming salon for 35 years. Okay. And then finally was able to retire and just paint. Okay. But, you know, and I could live on painting. I would have to do a lot more commissions. You know, I would have to, you know, paint for a lot. I would have to do it differently, you know, which would mean I wouldn't be in as many museums. I wouldn't have risen to this level. You know, I would have had to structure things differently if it wouldn't have been, you know, for him holding the fort down and helping, you know, paying the bills. Yeah. Yep. So I do well, but it would look different. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's so nice though to hear that, you know, he's stood by you and done all of those things with you through the whole time. But it's not like you weren't doing anything either. You had your dog salon, like you said, for 35 years or so. That's 35 years, yeah. Yeah, that's a long time. It's a career.
A long time to be grooming dogs. Right. That's hard work, you know. So, you know, and I had a big salon, you know, and a well-known salon. And so in the area. And so, I worked really hard and I liked it. And you know, it allowed me to paint still, you know, it's like being a hairdresser, you know, kind of make your hours, but I worked a lot of hours, you know? And so, so, you know, I worked really hard and I still continued to groom dogs while we were married for probably the first 10 years. And, he really wished I would have probably retired sooner. You know, he really wanted me. He was really into the art when we met. And so he really, you know, he would come to my shows and, you know, before we were married. And I mean, he really supported me. So a lot of times scientifically minded people, they are drawn to artistic people for some reason. I don't know what that is, but I have found that through the years that, you know, scientific people I think they kind of wonder, you know, how that part of the mind works, you know?
Opposites attract, kind of. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, sometimes there are people that have both. You know, they have the science thing going on. They're really bright that way. And then they have the art thing going on too. You know, not very many of them, but it's kind of interesting too. But I know I met a couple of veterinarians. Actually, there's a couple amazing wildlife artists that are veterinarians that I've been able to meet through some of the societies, which has always been really surprising because, like I said, you usually don't see both.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed listening to our podcast and encourage you to share with all your equestrian family and friends. You can tune into the Late Night Riders podcast show every Friday night. Each episode will be uploaded exclusively on YouTube, where you can subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all of our latest shows. Do you have a topic you'd like us to discuss? We want to hear from you. You may email us at podcast@ramfence.com or feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you again for listening.